welcome back. It's the international break is over. We are back for the Premier League review, preview, all that good stuff today. Main topic of conversation will be Kobbie Mainoo and his return to Erik ten Hag's first team squad. Guys, get into the chat. How are you feeling going into this weekend? Obviously, Manchester United exited the Premier League with a 2-1 win over Brentford, but there is big games on the horizon. Copenhagen in the Champions League at home, and then Manchester City in the Premier League. I'm a little bit scared. I'm a little bit afraid. Obviously, today we're also going to look at the Liverpool versus Everton game, and we're going to dive into a little bit of Arsenal versus Chelsea chat before finish things off, rounding off the programme by discussing Manchester United's game away at Bramall Lane versus Sheffield United. Let's get this party started. Welcome everyone to the chat. Johnny, what's up? Everything is good, my brother. I got a coffee, had a bit of a break in the international break. We are back for some more fun. Again, every single Friday, before Premier League games, we're going to do the Premier League preview throughout the season on this channel right now. We're going to be talking tactics, analysis, big talking points. Get them all in the chat. We've got a question coming in from Ryan. Why United spawning all of these youngsters this season? I think it's a big thing to do with Erik ten Hag. Malu in the chat. Kobbie Mainoo is a huge profile for ten Hag's build-up game. Absolutely. I think with Kobbie Mainoo and the squad, it's just a massive benefit. I think Manchester United, with Casemiro in central midfield, have looked a little bit shot this season. Casemiro, of course, is going to miss the weekend's game with injury, but United don't look very good with him as the single pivot. Whereas you're looking at Amrabat will come into the team and he will operate in this half-back role. I think his relationship with a Mason Mount, let's say, deep, will be really, really good. But I think the impact of Kobbie Mainoo is going to be pretty big. I think He's got the real quality on the ball and something exciting for Manchester United. So where will Kobbie Mainoo line up for Manchester United? For me, it's in the number 6 position in midfield. He struck up a really good relationship with Mason Mount in pre-season. Again, the game that everyone goes back to is his performances against Arsenal. That midfield pairing of Mount and Mainoo against Arsenal was really, really good. What I like about Kobbie Mainoo is he's always in that number 6 position for Erik ten Hag, always ready to receive and then distribute the ball. I think the other benefit that he's got a really good ability to carry. Something that Manchester United lack in central midfield is that ball-carrying midfielder, someone that can take the pressure and drive through. All the rest of the top teams in Europe have a deep-line playmaker that could do this. Think Manchester City with Rodri, Declan Rice at Arsenal. Manchester United don't have that, and that's why I really like Kobbie Mainoo's profile in possession. Not only does he make the right decisions when it comes to passing the football to move it on, but also playing the balls into the forwards ahead, but he also can carry, and defensively really good against the ball. I like Mainoo in a sense of he's good at covering positions. There was times in pre-season where he saw him covering the right-back position and the centre-back position at different times when United's possession play had broken down. Mainoo on the cover. He's got a real good ability to catch up with the opponent's wingers, which I think, elevates United midfield. It gives it a little bit of pace. And for this season, Mainoo is going to be on the fringes. He's going to be playing in the League Cup, going to be playing in the FA Cup. But he's going to be building himself up as a player under Erik ten Hag. Ten Hag currently sees him as this number 6, and I think that's a great role for him going forward. Get into the comments, guys. What do you make of Kobbie Mainoo? Are you excited? Do you think he's going to really grow into the position? I think one of the big things for me with Kobbie Mainoo is what I've been impressed with, actually, is his physicality. So Mainoo, the one concern I had with Mainoo last season when he had a few spells under Erik ten Hag at attacking midfield and central midfield was he looked quite small. He looked quite weak in a sense, but I think he's really gone away over the summer and bulked up. There's some pictures from training you guys can go and check out on Twitter. If you just search Kobbie Mainoo, you can really see that he's put some muscle on. And I think when you look at the opening performances, in pre-season, you really start to gauge a player that is physically, stepped up and physically developing in the right way, which is something that Manchester United lack at times in central midfield. There's a lot of small technical central midfielders, but we kind of lack that, physical player that's also very, very good in possession. And that's exactly what Kobbie Mainoo is. Another player that came through at Fletcher Moss. If the Premier League properly, funded grassroots, that would be quite nice. But in terms of just an overall little bit of analysis to kickstart this, Kobbie Mainoo, very much that kind of central midfielder that's going to get on the ball and look to dictate. Here's some clips from the pre-season friendly against Leeds United where he was absolutely sensational in central midfield, really ran the game for United when he was on the pitch. And it's nice to see a young player do this. We've got to remember Kobbie Mainoo is just 18 years old. But what I like about him is that we've seen a gradual improvement of his game. I always look for that in players. Declan Rice is probably the best example in the Premier League right now of players that grow over time. And I think Kobbie Mainoo has got that potential to continue to learn, to continue to evolve. And you think about what he could be in the long term. Paul Pogba, a very flashy midfielder, moments of brilliance for Manchester United, but lack consistency. Injuries were a humongous problem for Paul Pogba. Kobbie Mainoo could be the player we all wanted Paul Pogba to be. But anyway, back to the action. Pick up the ball with Amad Diallo on the right wing. Again, another player coming back from injury. Very excited to see him back in the first team. Balls work through Hannibal Mejri, back to Mainoo in central midfield. I think one of the things that I like about Mainoo in terms of his receiving, he uses his body really well to protect the football. He lets the ball run across his body to beat a defender. He just does things that you see in very good central midfielders. So in this instant, he lets the ball run across his body, opens himself up, simply shifts it to Lisandro Martinez. United at this point building with a back three with Fernandes tucking in, Lisandro in the middle in that libero position, and Rafael Varane as the right centre-back in a back three. What I like about Mainoo, though, as soon as he's moved the ball on, he's ready to get into a position to receive again. He's focused on the ball. He's in a good position to receive. That other thing that we mentioned before, letting the ball move across his body, he does it really well. I think it's one of his best assets as a footballer. And you can see here the pressure comes from Leeds United in central midfield. Quite aggressive team off the ball, but he simply lets the ball run across him, beats the defender, and then plays the smart pass to break the lines, allowing United to get into the final third with their two wingers, with three attackers behind a Jadon Sancho. It's just simple. It's really simple stuff, but stuff that I like. This is what I like in a central midfielder, which I'm really excited to see Kobbie Mainoo. Simple stuff. Allow the ball to run across your body, beats the defender, simple pass into the final third. But there's more moments of simple play that Mainoo had against Leeds United is another one, with him receiving in that kind of number 6 position. Ready to receive, good first touch, opens up his body, can play forward straight away. In this instant, the pass forward isn't on, checks back inside, beats the Leeds United defender again, simple pass out. I love this in a central midfielder. Keeping things ticking over at the base of, the defence, allowing the attacking shape to kind of develop, moving the ball on, getting into space, receiving at the right time if the pass is not on first, come back and then playing out wide to the right back. It's really mature play, guys, which I think is good for a young player to have this. Just jumping back into the chat. Kev, love your content. Thanks, my friend. Aidan in the chat as well. Welcome. I'm doing quite well, my friend. Could have done with another week off, international break, but we roll forward. I think I'm going to go on holiday in November. Life has been pretty busy lately. Pretty busy. Anyone's bought a house in the chat. God, that is some stressful stuff. But anyway, we move. Matt had in the chat as well. Kobbie will help us out so much, especially with the form of Casa and the minor injury that Amrabat is carrying. Absolutely. I think the really exciting thing for me is that I reckon you could slot him in straight away. I really do. I think he's very mature. And I think that's a really big benefit of a player that's, ready to make that next step. It's, you show maturity at 18. It's an exciting time to see what's to come, in the future, which is cool. Phil in the chat as well. Carl in the chat. Good to see you all. I do think that there's a level that Manchester United need to improve that base, and having midfielders like a Mainoo at the base of midfield to receive and to keep the play moving on is exciting. First when I saw Mainoo, I thought he'd probably be more suited to playing as an 8 for Erik ten Hag. I thought he'd be kind of a inside player receiving in these advanced areas, which I do believe he could still do. I think that's definitely part of his game right now. But I just love how dynamic he is at the base of midfield. I think he's got a lot of quality. And the injury was at such a bad time for Manchester United. You remember the Arsenal game in pre-season? Kobbie Mainoo was absolutely outstanding. And this is just like, you've got to look at this Arsenal team that started. It's basically their kind of first choice 11. Odegaard's in there, Rice in midfield, Havertz in midfield. You got Saka and Martinelli out wide. Tomiyasu, Gabriel, William Saliba, Timber. That's basically the first choice Arsenal 11 for the season. Obviously, pre-season, you can't take too much out of it. But the performances of Kobbie Mainoo that day, absolutely sensational. Completed 96% of his passes, got an assist, but also played the ball over the top for the second goal in the game. And at times he was dropping in between the centre-backs, which I really liked. We speak a lot about Amrabat being the half-back for Erik ten Hag's side when eventually everyone's fit. The same thing that Kobbie Mainoo was doing in pre-season, which, again, gives United's squad a lot more quality. You think United probably did need to sign another number 6 in the summer. I think Amrabat and another one would have been good. But if Mainoo can facilitate that role, absolutely fantastic. So we've got some just a bit more from the Arsenal game. Kobbie Mainoo's passing, his movement, picking up the ball at the base of this diamond. Something that Manchester United need to create a lot more is a lot more of a consistent base shape. I think their base shape is a little bit too fluid, and I think that's one of my, not concerns with Erik ten Hag, one of my frustrations with Erik ten Hag's Manchester United is we don't see a constant fixed base through games. By base, I mean kind of how the possession structure's looking. For example, we've just seen there, Kobbie Mainoo sat between the two centre-backs and Mason Mount sitting in a high position. We don't see that over and over again in games. We see a lot of fluidity between the kind of back players where at times we'll see, Mount being high and, Varane tucked in, the right back tucking in and it building out. I would say that we've got to move a little bit more structured in that environment, be less fluid. You look at Manchester City, you look at Arsenal, 9 times out of 10, I'll be able to tell you exactly what their main build-up structure is for the game. And yes, it is a little bit fluid and flexible, but it's not as flexible as our build-up. So it's kind of balancing that out between having a flexible build-up that's hard to deal with, but also at the same time having structure and repetition of the same build-up with the same players high. Long-term, I'd prefer Man United to build with more players in central midfield, something we spoke about on one of the videos for this week, talking about how Manchester United could create a base diamond, how it could, have a, let's say, Diogo Dalot's inverted, Lindelof, Reguilon sitting a little bit deeper, and having a diamond of central midfielders in there that can dominate possession, that can get on the ball, that can allow United to create and so forth with, let's say, Diogo Dalot inverting. That's what I'd like to see a little bit more of. But anyway, back to Kobbie Mainoo. I think one of the exciting sides for him as a ball player is he's got great quality in receiving. He's really calm as well. Arsenal are a very good pressing team. Even like the pressure on the blind side here from Eddie Nketiah, just super relaxed, always going to take the ball on. Manchester United do lack players that do this, that receive in difficult positions. Again, receiving a ball off Tom Heaton, comfortable in possession. There's pressure all around him, carrying past Kai Havertz and clipping a lovely ball into the channel. Just really good play, really good aggressive football, calm in possession, really composed pass over the top. Perfect stuff. And that's where I talk about the decision-making being really good. His decision-making is fantastic for his age, and those types of moments are really, really nice. Oh, we got a lovely little super chat in the chat. Shout out to Arif with the $4. Love your analysis. Why do you think United can't stay compact? Is it due to their relatively slow players in midfield or lack of a vision? We addressed this point in our 3 Diamonds 3 video. For me, Manchester United need to get away from pressing in a 4-2-3-1. So at the moment, Man United press in a kind of narrow 4-2-3-1 in like this structure when the opponents have got the ball. My problem with this shape is that it's really good when teams play through you. Like, really, really good. And by the statistics, United have had more shots following high turnovers than any other team in the Premier League. They've also had more high turnovers. But it's resulted in 0 goals so far. The issue with this is it's narrow and there's massive space either side. So there's humongous space to bypass this pressing structure where, like, you go wide to a fullback. We've seen over and over again. You know, the Barcelona game was a great example of it, where Barcelona went over the press to the fullback and United are basically carry through and then you're broken. Basically, you're cutting off these front four players, which requires a lot of work for your central midfield to basically deal with the entire thing, plus the defenders. So I think that is definitely one thing. I think having more mobile players in defensive midfield would help. But for me, you've got to change the pressing structure. Go 4-4-2. All the good teams in Europe do it. You sit in a mid-block 4-4-2. One of your central midfielders jumps when you're pressing high. You narrow up from the wide areas. It's a great structure. It's so much more dependable than the 4-2-3-1 narrow press. So hopefully that's answered your question, Arif. Any other questions, do get them into the chat, even if it is about Sir Jim Ratcliffe. We made a video yesterday, if you've not watched it, 12 reasons why I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe's takeover is a good thing for Manchester United. The comments we've had on that video have been interesting. So if you have any questions on that video, do get into the chat, because I can explain in further detail why I think it's a good thing. And I think first and foremost, you know, just to get everyone firing in the chat, the Qataris have released a lot of press after not putting the money up to buy United. The reason why Ratcliffe won it was because if you work out the total 100% of what his bid was, it was more than the Qatari bid. They didn't stump up the money to then leak information about players that they wanted to buy. What? Kylian Mbappe, that we know currently plays exactly the same position as Marcus Rashford and hasn't won a trophy at PSG, or he hasn't won the Champions League at PSG. Number 2, you signed Eduardo Camavinga, who's already at Real Madrid, that's very, very happy, that's even playing out of position to stay at Real Madrid. Also, number 1, Kylian Mbappe is going to Real Madrid in the summer. So there's 2 players that are Real Madrid players, and Kingsley Coman, that scored a goal in the Champions League final, fair play to him, but plays again on the left wing. Crazy. That's my concern with it. There's a lot of PR coming out from Qatar that is making fans think, oh, you know, we should have gone with these guys. These guys are going to sort out all the problems. Number 1, the Qataris have, their sporting project is PSG. 11 years, 1 Champions League final appearance. They've not won it. They've spent a crazy amount of money. Like, there is no consistency there. What I like about what Ineos have done is, number 1, they've been amazing in multiple sports. And the impact of their, what they've done in sport it's hard to say, because I don't specialise in these sports. But if you read some of the stuff about Dave Brailsford, he revolutionised English cycling. And that type of thing is good. That is a good thing. Having someone that's done it in sport, and they've already built this sphere of football clubs already. United instantly slot into a group of football clubs. I don't agree with football groups, but it's what's happening in the European football right now. So it's crazy. I just think that the PR spin here is crazy, and we try to look at it a really objective way in terms of what Jim Ratcliffe would do, how he would grow it, what mistakes he's made already, how he's going to learn on that. Like, he's already made quite a few mistakes with Nice. That means they've done the learnings. Again, the truth is the truth. This is live, Rio, so any questions come in, do get them in there. Qatar bid was simply not good enough, simple as. Promised the world, and that's through the PR, absolutely. I think that's a big thing. Sir Jim will invest. People who think he won't are mad. Yes, you look at all of his sporting projects, from cycling to, the Mercedes deal, to Nice, to the club in Switzerland, to the club in Ivory Coast that they own. There's investment in there. So that, again, crazy. It's really interesting how this gone. And I do blame certain people on the internet. Goldberg. Like, a lack of thought from some people on the internet that just drive stupid agendas that just need to think a bit. Like, come on. We're all intelligent people here. Like, what's going on? Like, think a little bit. Like, the Qataris didn't put the money in to buy the club. Did they want the club enough? No. That's what it is. They are one of the richest families in the world. They are so rich. An extra £1 billion probably means nothing to them. I think they're worth like over 470 odd billion. That's so much money. If they don't want it, they don't want it. So, look, I think the big thing is like changing the agenda on Man United. It's so negative at the moment. Let's have a little bit of, Jim Ratcliffe may actually help things. Like, if he takes sporting control, that is better than anything that's happened in the last 15 years for Manchester United. 15 years! Anyway, that's my thoughts. Just lay them on the table. Any other questions on that? Get into the chat. If you're angry about it, let me know why, and hopefully I can talk about why I believe certain things, or I look at it and grow it out. So it's an interesting one. Any ability to remove the Glazers at the football club is a good thing, even if it's a percentage of the football club. If you want to look more at that, there's so many good articles. The Athletic have done some good stuff. The thing that came out this morning after we recorded the video was that Joel Glazer would still be part of the sporting decisions, but would be with Jim Ratcliffe and Dave Brailsford. If you look at those people, there's 3 individuals there, 2 are Ineos, so therefore Ineos have the decided view. Again, that's from the outside looking in from doing the research. In terms of my opinion on it, and we all can have opinions on a takeover that we know nothing about. Ratcliffe is an investor only? Nope. You need to do your research. Ratcliffe wants to buy the football club. The only reason why he didn't take 51% of the football club was because they would have been sued by the Class A shareholders. Google that, look at that, and it'll be good. You told Jim will have full sporting control. He will have full sporting control. That is why he's putting the money in. Again, have a look on the internet. Go and do your research. That's the research we've done, and that's what we've learned. And again, I'm not in the negotiations. I am not here. I've not been in the room with them, so nobody knows. This is from what I have looked at it and analysed this situation. How many years before we start seeing proper impact on the pitch? So again, Carl, being brutally honest, it's taken 5 years for Nice to be anything that resounds a kind of, super competitive football club. But you look at some of the spending that Nice have done and some of the signings that they've made, in youth players especially, they've picked up some pretty big gems. So, you're looking at Moffey. I'm a big fan of Moffey. We spoke about him more on the channel. He's a super, super good forward. Balls into feet, drives. They got him on a really cheap deal. You're looking at other players, Cleffer and Thuram. They signed for basically nothing from Monaco. Again, a good signing. Guri, who's come through the Nice way, and now he plays for Rennes now, I do believe. You've also got Todibo. Again, we're linked with Todibo. He is at a great level in European football. Melvin Bavard is another top quality young left back. When you look at some of the project, there's some good stuff there. And you take that Nice at the moment, currently second in Liga, they've beat PSG away, they beat Monaco away, they've got one of the youngest managers in European football. There's stuff there that I like. There is things that I like. That's what I like. In there. But you're saying exactly you don't know. I've looked into this. I have made a piece of content on it. I have done my analysis. I know more than you. I think it's fair to say. Anyway, we're all peace and love in here. About Abe in the chat. I was in support of Qatar, but this is honestly because of their media PR, but was looking out now. Ratcliffe actually was a wiser option. Again, we don't know. Only the time will tell. And we'll see what's kind of going down. Nice manager's supposed to be the next big thing. Yes, he is. And we'll probably do a video on them at some point in there. I trust Sir Jim. I think he'll prove people wrong. Hope he does. Absolutely bang on with that. Max, can the Qataris work with Sir Jim Ratcliffe? No, I don't think so, because it was a separate bid. They wanted full control, which is a little bit different in a sense. But this needs to be done as soon as possible. This is the biggest frustration right now is that this hasn't been done. The things we spoke about in the video, United need to basically get rid of their CEO and director of football as soon as possible. Both of them are ill-equipped for their jobs. You take Arnold, who had the whole Greenwood situation that he poorly dealt with, and then you've got John Murtough that's never really had a job as a director of football. His signings have been garbage. They're the things that instantly need to change. That instantly needs to be the thing that Ratcliffe comes in and bins both of those guys off. If he starts to do things and put the wheels in motion, then we're in a positive outlook. If he keeps both of those guys, question marks. In there. So it's an interesting proposition for Manchester United, I'd say, and it's not a negative thing. Don't listen to all the PR, would be my advice to all the wonderful people in the chat. I really wouldn't, push that one out. Obviously, we chatted about that, and if you want to watch more about that, definitely go and check out the video on the channel. Is there any disadvantage you can think of if we decided to take Jim Ratcliffe on? I think the disadvantages, you'd say, not fan ownership, which is a big one for me personally. I think that's a real big thing that clubs should have. You do look at the sporting structure of Manchester United, and are people going to be patient with him? Because it will take a bit of time. You know, the whole concept of Dave Brailsford is the 1% increase every single day. If you do that over 365 days in a year, you get 37% increase in terms of where you started with. But that'll take time, so we really got to be patient. Patient with the club, patient with the players, and patient with Jim Ratcliffe to see what he can do. And look, the big things that United need to fix, the big issues with the club right now, it's the debt that the Glazers have put on. That's a humongous problem, which is disgusting, should have never happened, and hopefully Ratcliffe can fix that. But if United were debt-free, United would literally be one of the best financial models of a club in the world, and that is the frustration. United don't really need to have, a load of investment. The club is in such a good position in the world of football that if you improve the sporting success by, again, like 10%, United go from being Champions League every other year to Champions League every single year, competing for trophies, blah, 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 blah. That changes the markup of the institution. It's making so much money. The issues have been, literally the Glazers have been the big problem of this whole situation. And if that can start to be fixed, then we start to grow into a much better position in that. Matt in the chat, is it true that Sir Jim has the MO of taking old and historic but struggling British brands and turning them sustainable, giving them new life? I think that's part of what he's done, but I don't know whether you can ever apply the business side and the football and the sport side, but that's where I think Ineos are in a good position because they do sport. So they're as much as Ineos have improved X, Y, and Z in whatever industry, they're actually in sport. They're not like the Qataris that aren't in sport. And I know that money can fix a lot of problems, but I like the base is already there, and that's an improvement. And the debt-free side, James, is a big part of it, and that we don't exactly know what that's going to be. We do know that if Ineos buy the club with debt, the debt will be on Ineos, not on Manchester United. We do know that. That has been said, which I think is a big thing. Great chat, guys. Well, I'm glad to get that off my chest. And I hope you guys have learned a little bit more, or your opinions have learned a bit more, which is important for us all. MX10, Ratcliffe going Mercedes F1, MUFC, yeah, and then you throw in the cycle team as well, or you throw in, there's a bit more of a sports brand there, which is interesting, really interesting. Right, let's go back into the Premier League. It's Premier League time. First game we're going to be talking about today, Liverpool versus Everton, the Merseyside derby. Again, Jurgen Klopp has got an early fixture, which he is going to be fuming about, which is reasonably funny, but also I can understand why. I think he's had 3 already this season, and they're going to have a 4th one with Manchester City. It's pretty crazy, but you got to deal with the hand that you're given from this perspective. Liverpool have got a few issues to deal with at the moment. They've had some injuries in kind of real key positions, and I think the start of our chat today will be kind of about their current problems. They drew with Brighton last week 2-2. Some really good individual performances in this game. Dingara was fantastic. Salah was superb. Szoboszlai was great in midfield. And Darwin Núñez is maybe turning into the forward that we all perceived him to be. Grabbed himself an assist in the game with some good hold-up play. And I think going back to last summer when looking at Núñez the summer before, when he was heavily linked with the move to Manchester United, my concern with him was he wasn't a footballer in a sense of his ability to receive defeat and turn, which I do believe is something that you need in a modern-day number 9, something that Højlund has got in abundance. Núñez is this kind of real raw player, I think this could be the time where he starts to kick off. Goal and assist against Brazil for Uruguay in the international break. Really good assist, lovely bit of skill, and then a low cross into the box. Scored as well. His run of games, last kind of 4 games, been directly involved in 4 goals. He's someone that Liverpool really need to build on. But the current concern for Liverpool, of course, is Andy Robertson, who dislocated his shoulder and will be out for a while. So in terms of who comes into replace Andy Robertson, that's a kind of a key thing. So how should Liverpool set up without Andy Robertson? I think that the first obvious answer to this would be throwing Tsimikas into left back, providing a very similar option to Andy Robertson. Liverpool's build-up obviously this season is more kind of playing with free eights. It's more having Trent Alexander-Arnold tucking inside, and the left back being a little bit more defensively sound, a little bit more defensively responsible than we're used to with Andy Robertson overlapping the winger ahead and getting into the box. And that's not to say that Andy Robertson hasn't done that at times this season, but if Tsimikas were to come into the role, there'd be less times to overlap Luis Diaz and put balls into the box. But that's definitely the kind of the basic option for Liverpool. But I think looking at other options, if Liverpool want to kind of move to maybe more that Manchester City, Arsenal model of building with a kind of more true back three, Joe Gomez as an outside centre-half in the build-up position could be a really good option. Either Gomez on that left-hand side or Konate on that left-hand side, whichever player's a little bit more comfortable in possession on that left foot. I probably would go with Konate. But that would really create that base back three for Liverpool. Midfield box, 2 wide wingers, and then a number 9 through the middle, which is kind of where Klopp and Pep Linders are going at the moment. So I'd like to see Liverpool playing a centre-back at left-back and then building in that same way with Trent inverting into that midfield line to replace Andy Robertson until he's back from his injury. But it is interesting. Liverpool have been hot and cold this season. They're a team that's obviously challenging for the top 4 that really need to kind of kick on. After the last 2 games, Liverpool did go through a good run of form, then lost to Tottenham Hotspur 2-1 in the Premier League, then drew with Brighton. So this is a big match, and I think the big thing with Everton, don't sort of like undervalue Everton this season. They've been they aren't flying up the league. They're in 16th position, but in terms of their chance creation this season, it's been really, really good. They had a torrid start to the season, but they're starting to roll. Their expected goals is 14.34, which ranks them actually 7th in the Premier League. And if they can get, the classic thing, Dominic Calvert-Lewin starting, or Beto consistently firing, they'll absolutely fly up the league. And I tell you what, James Garner, the frustration with James Garner is that Manchester United could do with a player like James Garner at the moment. I really believe that. Another central midfielder that could do a job at right back. He's been playing for Everton either in central midfield as he did against Bournemouth, operating in that sort of number 8 position, or alternatively he's been playing wide on the right-hand side as he did against Brentford. His ability to deliver is fantastic. One of my big frustrations for Manchester United is that they didn't utilise him properly as a right-back. And I do think, look, Mahad, if they've got a buyback, I would 100% utilise that buyback for James Garner. It's a really interesting role for him for Everton. We always talk about Everton's wide players operating like fullbacks for big clubs. Garner has been very, very good in this role. Grabbed an assist against Brentford, scored against both Aston Villa in the EFL Cup, and scored against Bournemouth in the Premier League. I'd like to see that exercised at some point. The big players for Everton as well, Decore this season has been in great form, and he's got a good understanding with Dominic Calvert-Lewin in 7 games so far in the Premier League this season. We've seen Decore score 3 goals. In terms of the crashing the ball into the box and getting on the end of things, it's really, really important. Seems to have a good relationship with the players ahead, and he's playing kind of in this 4-4-1-1 and could cause Liverpool problem. We saw in the game against Brighton for Liverpool how you can catch them out. If we kind of roll back to that game before the international break, the first goal that Dingara scored was very much down that ilk of stealing the ball high, turning it over, then a low shot into the box. That was on McAllister. And I do believe you can catch Liverpool out this season with McAllister in possession. McAllister at Brighton very much played in double pivot when he was deep in midfield, and that really suited his game. Liverpool are playing him by himself at the moment, and I think, look, you've got Decore pressing, jumping on him aggressively. You could win the ball back high. For Liverpool, Mohamed Salah is a man in absolutely brilliant form. 18 goal involvements in the last 16 games for Mohamed Salah. He is flying. He's back to his best. He's playing slightly more of a wider role for Liverpool, more of a chance creation role. You know, take the game against Wolverhampton Wanderers where he came away with 2 assists. He is operating more as a winger, which is interesting. We see another kind of different evolution of Mohamed Salah, and he is doing the business. He is the make or break player for Liverpool right now in the Premier League. So far this season, in 8 games, directly involved in 9 goals, 5 goals and 4 assists. Get him into your fantasy teams, guys. My fantasy team for this week, it's going to be the 3-5-2. Salah going to be the vice captain, Haaland the real captain. And we're going to roll the transfer. Wildcarded last week, 55 points, first green arrow in a long time. But that is what you need to screenshot right now, guys. This is the fantasy team for you. Lots of Spurs at the moment, but we're going to be moving some Spurs on in game week 10. And I'll tell you what, Pedro Neto. I absolutely love Pedro Neto. I would love to see Pedro Neto at Manchester United. Mahad in the chat talking about wingers. Neto has been so good. I do think with, you know, players like Pedro Neto that kind of had that spell out with injury, it's difficult to regain your sort of form and fitness. You know, he missed basically 2 seasons of Premier League football, but now we're seeing the Pedro Neto that I love. We did a video of 3 players Man United should sign to replace Jadon Sancho in January over the international break. If you've not checked that out, make sure you go and do that. We talk about Pedro Neto, we talk about Loran, the Flamengo attacking midfielder, and also we have a little chat about Samardzic, the Udinese attacking midfielder, who I'm a big fan of. If you've never heard of him, go and have a look at him. You know, take a look on YouTube, on Scout, whatever platforms you guys use to do your analysis. But he is a player that just, there's something about him. There is something about Samardzic that I really like. Like, I think he's got that ability to play in the Premier League tomorrow. I just think he's a top quality player. He really is. If you guys have seen him in the chat, you know, let me know your thoughts. But he's just got great quality. Really does. Jay Zilla in the chat. Just a young kid. Let's not put too much pressure on him. Talking Kobbie Mainoo, absolutely. I think the things that Kobbie Mainoo have done very well so far in his Man United career under Erik ten Hag is the composure, the right decisions, and, you know, long term, there's a lot of sort of promise around him, which is nice. His composure is unreal. Byline crosses with intention, not just passing blindly for Pedro Neto. Goober, I saw both Sterling and Watkins just before their hauls. Yeah, I saw Watkins just before his haul because I'm an idiot. But yeah, if you want to check out a footballer, Samardzic, great fun. Really good fun. But anyway, guys, that's kind of the a little bit of chat around the first game we're going to be discussing today. That is Liverpool versus Everton in the Premier League. I think number 1, Decore versus McAllister could be a really big battle if he's back from the international break, or even Decore versus Endo. I think exactly the same thing is true there. Endo is a player you can rush in possession. One of the weirdest Liverpool signings I've seen in recent years. I don't personally rate him. The other side's obviously is Tsimikas coming in versus a defender. I think they should go for a defender there. And Liverpool, you know, one of the guys has been driving them forward and been playing really well this season. Dominic Szoboszlai is there, you know, Matt Zala linking with Salah, driving inside with Salah. He's been fantastic on and off the ball. But they're my thoughts. Get your score predictions in for the game. Everton versus Liverpool. Get into the chat. The moon landing in the chat. Samardzic with a little winky smiley face. Absolutely, that kid is top class. Endo reminds me of Scott McTominay playing DM. Hey, Scott McTominay's a goal-scoring midfielder. We've all just profiled him wrong in there. But yeah, Endo's, for me, it's like a centre-back playing, like a no-nonsense centre-back playing in defensive midfield. Weird signing, in my opinion. You know, brought on against Spurs and just didn't really have a great game. He's just not a player that I would have bought, but anyway, all good. McTominay, second striker. Get your score predictions in. The Goober's going to go 4-0 Liverpool. It could really be one of those blow-up games for Liverpool, obviously after the international break. Carl's going to go for a 2-1 tight win for Liverpool. Derby's always tight. Yeah, over the last few years, it's been reasonably tight. 2 goals winning it last time, obviously, was the 4-1 win. With Salah running right, was that right? Yeah, 2 goals for Mohamed Salah, goal for Jordan Henderson. So maybe you're looking at a Dominic Szoboszlai winner in this match, 2-1. Right, let's move on to the next game. That is Chelsea versus Arsenal. Big game. Arsenal were absolutely fantastic in their last game before the international break, beating Manchester City for the first time since 2015. Arteta deserves the plaudits, slightly tweaked his system, built with both Jorginho and Declan Rice in deep positions, allowing the left-back to play a lot higher. We can see that with the average positions, with Zinchenko playing higher than Declan Rice, but after the substitutes as well, look how high that Tomiyasu was, obviously very involved in the goal. Really dominant display for Arsenal. I thought they played really well. Obviously, City were without Rodri, and that was a big part of their game. Bernardo Silva played DM for the match. So it's kind of, we're looking at a team that's going to get their best player back in Rodri, but a team that got opened up. They really did. I think with what we saw from the performances and how everything came together from an Arsenal perspective, it was absolutely fantastic. It really was. But City were kind of without their best player. It was a good time to play them. Should City have been down to 10 men in the first half? Probably. But the pressing was very, very good from both sides, which kind of led to a real poor game. But just in terms of the shape stuff we just mentioned then, jumping into the match. This is for the goal. It comes from a carry out the back from Thomas Partey, so nobody's putting pressure on the ball from Manchester City. They've slightly switched off, draws Mateus Nunes out. You've got 2 passes potentially for Partey if there's a little shift from attacking midfield into the inside position. Could be a ball in there, could be a ball into the feet of the forwards, but Tomiyasu basically running Phil Foden. Declan Rice in a deeper position, the wing back higher, ball gets dropped up to Tomiyasu. Mismatch versus their defenders. Flicks the ball down. Great hold-up play from Kai Havertz. Then a deflected goal for Martinelli. But it is interesting how it all kind of shifted in. Decent defensive structure. You can see Phil Foden, pretty safe position there. But as Tomiyasu runs off him, completely loses him. Little flick down. Great goal. Really great football from Arsenal. It really was. And I think they've probably proved something to themselves. They really have. The Badger in the chat. Dave, would you overpay massively for something you wanted, or would you walk away if the price is absurd relatively to what you're paying? It depends on what it is. I'd say Badger, in a sense of, I'm buying a house at the moment. The house was, the first house I wanted to buy collapsed the chain. The second house that I was buying was a little bit more expensive, and then the price went up at the end, which was super frustrating. I was annoyed about it, but I wanted that house. It's perfect for me, works well, it's in a great space, it's in a good spot in Manchester. So, yeah, I paid over the odds for it. And that is something, and I'm someone that doesn't have an infinite amount of money in a relative sense. The Qataris have an infinite amount of money in relative sense, and that's the difference between me and them, and purchasing things like Manchester United. So if that was your question, there was the answer, applying a slightly different way. Chelsea, on the other hand, hit a little bit of a run of form, beating Brighton in the EFL Cup, 1-0 win over 2-0 win over Fulham, and then beating Burnley 4-1. Probably the most impressive display of the season, that and probably their game against Luton. But surprise, in both of the games, Sterling put in a man of the match display, was sensational. Scored, won a penalty, assisted, was involved in the other goal. He was so good with the ball at his feet. It was kind of like watching classic Sterling, receiving on that left-hand side and carrying through and so forth. And Manchester City obviously let him go to Chelsea in the summer. And he's looked really good for Pochettino when things are working out. And when you look at the record for Sterling against Arsenal, it is pretty decent. You're looking at the goal involvements. He's been directly involved in 11 goals in 22 games, 8 goals and 3 assists in all competitions. If we just break that down to the Premier League, 19 games played for Sterling against Arsenal, 8 goals and 3 assists. He's going to be a threat. You know, when you look at the battle between Sterling and Ben White, I think that's going to be the big one for this match. Whether whether Ben White can deal with Sterling. Ben White at times has problems with certain players. And I think these like kind of dynamic wingers, like your Sakas that have got that ability 1v1 that can take you on outside, inside, like Sterling's got, I think that's going to be a great battle for this game to see how Arsenal do. I think the biggest thing for Arsenal, though, both Saka, who should be fit for the game, and Martinelli are back. Martinelli had great impact against Manchester City. In the first half of the game, I thought both teams lacked that explosive winger. You know, Arsenal's front three was Jesus and Nketiah and Trossard, whereas City's was Alvarez, Haaland and Foden. There was a lack of dribbling ability, and in games where the pressure's super high, it's very man-to-man, very aggressive, you open up these games with players that are really good 1v1, and that's why I thought Martinelli and Jeremy Doku could have made an impact. Martinelli did make an impact. Doku didn't make an impact. So I think it's going to be interesting, I think, for Arsenal to have their two main guys back. You know, big day for Malo Gusto and Cucurella. Cucurella, of course, has been embarrassed in recent seasons, against Arsenal. So that's going to be the one for them. I do think it's going to be down this left-hand side for Chelsea, Cucurella and Sterling versus Saka and Ben White. It's going to be a great game. Rashford owns Ben White. Absolutely. Guys, get your score predictions in for this game, for Chelsea's game with Arsenal in the Premier League, and then we're going to round things off talking Manchester United's game away at Bramall Lane and Sheffield United. Sheffield United versus Manchester United. We've got some more analysis for that as well. A little chat on Marcus Rashford, who needs our support right now. And then we're also going to look at a little bit of the Newcastle-Sheffield United game, because they were kind of really caught out, Sheffield United, in that match. They really were. But do get your score predictions in. Carl's going to go for a 3-1 to Arsenal. Chelsea just coming into form last few games, but Arsenal will be too strong for them. Goober, is Saka fit? The press conference that Mikel Arteta did this morning, he basically said Saka is trying his hardest to be fit for the game, which usually in Mikel Arteta chat means, yeah, he will be fit for the game. Bayo in the chat, right wing for Man United, Kubo or Williams. I need to have a little bit more of a look at Williams, to be fair. And Kubo's lovely little technical player. The players obviously we've discussed previously being those replacements. I think one could be Amad Diallo. I think Amad Diallo is a player of unique quality and a player that United invested £35 million into at the age of 16, 17. Should be giving that man a run. But Nico Williams will take a little bit of a look, and I'll give you my opinion next week. Mahad saying he's a baller, which is good. Thoughts on the Tonelli situation from Aiden, sorry. Crazy. Like, I'm speechless. You know, any time that I see footballers getting stuck in these gambling caught up in these gambling rings or these gambling situations, it kind of blows my mind. I don't understand why they'd be anywhere near that as a hobby, as fun. Like, it just should be, the people around them should be helping them, not fall into those types of positions. Agent, family, friends. It's crazy. And I think he will be banned. The lad from Juve got banned for 7 months today. So Tonali could get a year, maybe even more. And I think that'd be fair, considering what happened to Ivan Toney. The ban should be worse, considering what it's about. So, yeah, interesting. The Goober's going to go for a 2-1 Arsenal win, and Derek in the chat is going to go 3-2 Arsenal. I hope there's some goals in the game. That's all I'm saying, guys. Want some goals in the game. James Greed. Yep. Crazy. Aiden, AC Milan doing a timely sale, should we say? Yeah, very, very suspicious. It's almost like they knew. Yeah, I saw Papu Gomez got a 2-year ban, but the guy's my goat, so I'm a little sad about that. I love Papu Gomez. The Papu Gomez at Atalanta, oh, just brilliant footballer. But yeah, 2-year ban, might lose his World Cup medal, might lose his Europa League medal. If I were him, I'd just say I've lost them. They've gone. I don't know where they're at. Really don't know where they're at. But great score predictions, guys. Let's move into the big one. Saturday night, Sheffield United, Manchester United. This is a must win, if I've ever seen a must win for Manchester United. Sheffield United have 1 point in their last 6 games. There's a side here where you really should expect United to give them a beating. Defensively, so open in the Premier League. They conceded more goals than anyone else. They're rock bottom. The goal difference is already minus 16 after just 8 games. Unfortunately, I just don't think they've invested enough. Again, the ownership and whatnot is simply not been good enough for them. Cameron Archer's been the shining light for them in the Premier League. He'll still be a threat for Manchester United, a great sort of dynamic striker that can move around and cause United problems. But you look at the rest of the squad and the team. Gustav Hamer looks like a decent player, probably will stay in the Premier League, but there's just a real lack of quality, I think, in terms of Premier League quality that week in, week out can get results and get the job done. That's no disrespect to the players as footballers. It's just that Sheffield United, I don't think, maybe weren't ready for the Premier League, and that's kind of the concern. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of different things that United could do to open up this game. Jumping back into the chat, I think Kobbie is more grounded than Pogba. Plus, Pogba's better going forward. Kobbie's better defensively. Not a bad way to look at it. And Dye, would have loved to see him in the Premier League as well. Mahad. But in terms of kind of where United need to kind of go at Sheffield United, I think there's great vulnerability on the right-hand side of their defence. I think you could really run at the fullback. You could run take them wide, take them inside. And that's something that Newcastle did really well against them in the Premier League. They won 8-0, if you guys have forgotten. But the way that Bogle dealt with the wide areas and then the 3 centre-halves, there's definitely an angle for Marcus Rashford here for sure. So just taking a look at the goal that Gordon scored against Sheffield United. This was following Sheffield United switching to a midfield diamond, but the space is absolutely massive. One of the big things, their midfield doesn't move very well, in my opinion. Even if they play a diamond or they play the 2 and the 1 like they usually do, or they play a DM and 2 central midfielders, they just don't cover very well at all. And you'd expect them to deal with the wide areas. Think how well Brentford dealt with Marcus Rashford last week in their back 3, and they, the central midfielders shuttle out, the wing backs shuttle out on every moment the ball's played out wide. We just don't see that with Sheffield United, which will create these 1v1 situations. So the ball breaks in midfield. It's carried through. I think there is a weakness in there as well. If United had any capable ball carries through the centre of the pitch, like Bruno Guimaraes did have problems here. But I suppose the issue, in terms of the shape, we see the ball simply being worked over to the left-hand side. You've got a 3v2. This is what United could do over and over again with Marcus Rashford, with Reguilon, and then whoever's playing the inside left channel, be it Mason Mount or Bruno Fernandes or Scott McTominay, making those underlaps. Because you can really pull them out of position, which creates these 1v1 situations, which simply Gordon took in this moment. Cut inside, great run off the ball from Longstaff, opens up space, curled it into the far corner. It's such a simple goal. They are nowhere near that. And be it Marcus Rashford or Alejandro Garnacho that starts the game, this is on for the entire game. Wide player, receiving wide, underlaps, a lot of movement in and around him, opened up for the shot. And that's something that, Manchester City did a similar thing. Isolated that wide player. It wasn't for a shooting opportunity. This was Jack Grealish assisting, but it's a similar thing. This was more when Sheffield United were playing more of a back 5, but the midfield coverage is quite poor. They're quite narrow, which usually what we see with midfield threes is probably the right centre midfielder lower. If we think Brentford, like that midfielder would be deep, and then the other midfield would be a little higher, or alternatively with other midfields, we see the DM jumps and then the two centre mids drop in, but the coverage is really, really poor, which creates these situations. And I do think this position that Kovacic is in right now is an area that United need to target. The inside left position seems to have a lot of space against Sheffield United. A lot of space to do what you want. Kovacic from this position slid Haaland through in the first half. Really good, lovely little ball. Good save from the goalkeeper. Haaland went for the dink, but the same type of movement. Imagine, Mason Mount in this position. Rasmus Højlund making the run into the channel. Through ball. Left foot, natural strike across the goalkeeper. Again, I think Højlund is better on the left-hand side of the penalty area than the right-hand side of the penalty area. I think naturally finishing with that left foot's really good. But situation we spoke about before, creating 1v1 situations. This is where Rashford thrives. We looked at the game against Brentford. Rashford struggled. 2v1 every time on the outside. 2v1, centre midfielder, wing back. Centre midfielder, wing back. This is where you can really open up Sheffield United. Grealish beats him. Simple just carries into the penalty area, waits for the right moment, little fake on the outside, clip ball up to the back post, Haaland 1-0 City. But it's so simple, it's not a complicated goal. You've worked the ball out wide, it's a 1v1, you've driven him into the penalty area, you've gone on the outside. We've seen Rashford do that this season. We've seen Rashford explode on the outside this season. Also in the international break versus Italy, we saw Marcus Rashford scoring a great goal. A lovely little flick from Jude Bellingham, but Rashford receives the ball in this position. There's still a lot to do. There's still 3 defenders in this moment. And, there's still a bit of work to beat Di Lorenzo, to drive at him. Good movement off the ball from Jude Bellingham to pull the player away. But you think about that isolation, what United could do exactly the same thing against Sheffield United. Isolation, cut inside, finish far corner. Simple as you like. It's one of those situations where I do believe United should have a lot of joy from that position. Into the chat. What do you think of Yusuf Fofana? I like him, Derek, but I like him, but I don't love him. I think he's a good player, but I wouldn't go out there and sign him. Mahad, would you start Garnacho or Rashford? Anthony's probably guaranteed a start. I'd start Rashford for this game, I think. It's the perfect game for him. I think we talk about this isolation. This is exactly where I'd love to see Marcus Rashford, in these positions. And yeah, he didn't get enough credit for the goal that he scored against Italy, but I do think it's massive in terms of creating those 1v1 situations and allowing Rashford to run at Jadon Bogle. I think that is a massive mismatch. If we're looking at quality, Bogle versus Marcus Rashford is a humongous mismatch in that situation, and that coverage in midfield will probably be 2 holding midfielders and a sort of a number 10. Like Gustav Hamer will play higher. Look at the average positions. Against West Ham, Gustav Hamer is number 8. Very high, near the 2 forwards. And that opens up other problems for Sheffield United. So they basically isolate their DM by themselves, and there is stuff you can do against the DM. So number 1, we've spoke about how Man United can create that 1v1 situation out wide. There is another thing you can do, that is midfield runners. This is why I think Scott McTominay's got to start in this game. They don't deal with midfield runners. This average position is a classic example of why their DM, number 21, gets so isolated and they just don't track very well in the penalty area. Bocan in the chat, what do you think of Victor Osimhen leaving Napoli? I'd love to see him in the Premier League. He's such a good striker. Injuries have been a concern. Matt in the chat, Dave, you're playing FM24. Are you getting on the early transfers for United? I will be playing FM24, but I always like to wait for the game to come out. I never play the beta. I like the beta to allow the devs to have a little bit more time to fix the game, then I jump in after that. I'm going to be playing with Atalanta this season. Rio in the chat. The issue here, Sheffield United won't be in the position that Italy were on the counter-attack, but I do think, Rio, I think we've seen instances of allowing the 1v1. Jack Grealish and Jack Grealish and Anthony Gordon, why I think there's a good aspect there. But in terms of that midfield movement we mentioned before, Sean Longstaff's goal kind of highlights it against Sheffield United, and we can kind of see that the movement from kind of deep, moving a bit higher, and it comes from a throw in this move, but there's just no tracking. Gustav Hamer, number 8 there. We've got... I've forgotten who this fella is. My brain is broken. Oliver Norwood is the correct answer to that question. I know you're banging it all in chat, guys. But Oliver Norwood just on the edge of the box. But you could just see that Sean Longstaff makes that move into the penalty area, makes one run to the back, then checks in front after Anthony Gordon's good skill, escapes it, simple finish. This is a big vulnerability. Movement from deep against Sheffield United, huge vulnerability. And again, look at where Newcastle score this goal from. Left-hand side, isolating the outside centre-back 1v1 with a winger. Something United should do. They can't get Rashford 1v1 with Bogle. Get Rashford 1v1 with the outside winger. Either of them will get a lot of option. But the way that, Longstaff runs off Oliver Norwood, it's a really simple goal, something United could do. And we've got two kind of examples of this. In the game against Galatasaray for Manchester United. United starting defensively. Casemiro clearance. Great hold-up play for Rasmus, who I'm so excited to see again. Oh, I love a bit of Rasmus Højlund. Checks inside, beats his man, beats another one, plays the ball out. This is where we've got the Rashford 1v1 that we want to create against Sheffield United. Could be in open play, could be in this sort of counter-attacking position right now. But the movement of Mason Mount, big here. Amrabat with an underlap from left-back. Sort of draws the defender across, but Rashford with a really good bit of play, lovely ball in behind, and Mason Mount in the penalty area. But just see how Mason Mount's running off the centre-back in this instant. Centre-back's going to get drawn to the ball to Amrabat. Mason Mount should score. I think this is a game for Mason Mount. I think Mason Mount scores this weekend. If he can make similar moves as he did against Galatasaray. Similar type of play from United out of the back. Good little check inside from Diogo Dalot, building with a 3. Ball into the feet of Mason Mount in acres and acres of space. Driving through, again, creating that 1v1 situation. Rashford up against the fullback. Goes on the outside again. Low cross into the box. Ball breaks to Mason Mount. There's 3 options there for Marcus Rashford to hit. Bruno Fernandes, Mejbri or Højlund. Looks for Bruno Fernandes. Good defensive play. But again, Mason Mount should score. I think this is a game that Mason Mount will get onto the score sheet, really do, with the way that the midfield is tracked. But also how you can create these isolations on the left-hand side. So in terms of starting 11 for United, Amrabat in defensive midfield. I would go McTominay into attacking midfield. I think his attacking play in the penalty area will be really important. I think Mount comes into the number 8 position. Amrabat holding in midfield, as you want to see. Back 4 of Reguilon, Victor Lindelof, Rafael Varane, Diogo Dalot, Rashford on one wing, Bruno on the other. And this will be the setup that I would go with. What I expect to happen, though, I expect Anthony to maybe come in, Anthony to go on to the right, Bruno Fernandes at number 10. The issue with that is that this sets a bad precedent for Manchester United. Scott McTominay basically just saved Eric Ten Hag's job, in a sense, is if he doesn't get 3 points against Sheffield United after losing against Brentford, then plays the crunch time in the Champions League, then plays Man City, he's getting sacked. So you have to stick with the players that have saved you. And I do believe it's got to be Scott McTominay. The only way that I'd see Anthony coming into the team is if Anthony plays wide right, Bruno Fernandes plays deep, or Scott McTominay plays deep, which I would prefer Bruno Fernandes to play deep, and McTominay retains his position at 10. You've got to play him at second striker. He's got to have a run in the team. He just does. He's in the form of his life right now. Jumping back into the chat, Dave, have you seen the links with João Neves? Yes, I have. I think I've watched João Neves play for the under-19 Benfica team from last season. Nice. Tidy. Footballer. We'll love to see it. So in conclusion, get your score predictions in. Manchester United versus Sheffield United. Saturday, 8 o'clock. I think Marcus Rashford, absolute going to run riot. Mason Mount with the brace. It's going to be great times. And I think that's the team I'd probably play. Apart from Mason Mount deep, Scott McTominay high. And that'd be the one. Give Scott a chance. It's got to happen. But do get your scores into the chat. Carl's going to go for a 2-0 win for United. Poor from us this season, but that comeback should kick us on. Absolutely agree with that. Mahad's going to go for 5-1. You know what would be really good for United is just a win like that. Like a 4-0, Derek, or a 5-1 as you've put into the chat. I do believe it's a little bit of gusto to continue the season. You know what I mean? Like a little bit of a battering would be dead good for United. I really do think that's it's needed. It really is needed. But yeah, that has been that's probably been that for today. Thanks for everyone for sticking around. Here's my team for Manchester United versus Sheffield United. Take a little screenshot. Sorted. There we go. Big GG's in the chat. Hope you've all had a great time. A lad is going to go for a 2-0 win. Matt Kay, Jude Bellingham, and Scott McTominay the same profile, Dave. Interesting. I'd say Jude is probably a little bit more rounded, but similar in a sense as they both carry. They both are a goal threat. They both work extremely hard off the ball. So yeah, similar in a sense. I'll give you that. Aqua's going to go 3-1 United, Højlund and Marcus Rashford. Big GG's those guys. Big GG's in the chat. Of course, we'll be back on Monday for the Premier League review. Then we'll be talking preview next Friday. Got a really interesting video coming as well soon. But GG's in the chat. We'll see you all very, very soon. And